Welcome to AromaticChat, the podcast that introduces you to registered, clinical, and certified aromatherapists around the world. Every other week, my mom sits down with a different aromatherapist to learn about their aromatic journey and how they use essential oils in their lives and businesses. AromaticChat is produced by Lemon Balm Coaching, and my mom, Melissa, is your host. She is a master transformational coach and a registered aromatherapist.
Hey friends, welcome to podcast episode number 92, Aromatic Chat with Annie Prince. Annie is a Dublin-born aromatherapist. After studying languages at University College Dublin, she trained as a teacher and spent time in France, Spain, and the Bahamas before settling in New Zealand. She has a great love and passion for natural medicine. Annie is completely fascinated by the art and science of aromatherapy and the changes that it can evoke physically, mentally, and emotionally. After completing her diploma in aromatherapy, she studied advanced clinical aromatherapy in Australia and Provence with the incomparable Rhiannon Lewis. She's a teacher of aromatherapy and is particularly interested in aroma psychology. She helps her clients deal with stress and deep emotional issues through combining therapeutic touch and focused intent. I think you're going to really enjoy everything that Annie has to share, so let's get started. Annie, thank you so much for being with me here on the Aromatic Chat podcast. I can't believe that this is the 4th year of the podcast, which tells me that there are so many aromatherapists in the world, because I feel like I've just scratched the surface with all of the interviews that I've done. And I am just thrilled to be talking with you, another aromatherapist in New Zealand. So thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation, Melissa. I mean, I'm really delighted to be here, and it's a great honor. So, yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. Oh, so the first thing I always love to do is just get the story. Like, how in the world did you end up in New Zealand practicing aromatherapy the way that you do?
Okay, so I'll try and give you a little potted life history as quickly as I can. I think of myself as a bit of a global citizen because I've lived in a lot of places, but I definitely have a Celtic soul. I was born in Ireland and then brought up in England from the age of 6, went back to university in Ireland studying languages. And then I spent some time in France and Spain teaching English. I really fell in love with France at that time. I was an English assistant in the Lycée de Jeune Fille in Albi. So I have a great love for France. And then when I trained as a teacher, I spent 3 years teaching in the Bahamas. And eventually I ended up over 40 years ago in New Zealand. So bit of a gypsy maybe, but I have put down roots in New Zealand. And I mean, I think I'm very, very privileged, very lucky to live in this beautiful place. So then when we came to New Zealand, I took a step back from the educational world and brought up my 7 wonderful children who actually, I was going to say my greatest achievement. They achieved themselves, but they're my greatest. It's what, I think what I'm most proud of because they're amazing, smart, witty, human beings, but above all, they're good people and they're contributing to society. So anyway, it was while I was at home bringing them up that I really became interested in natural medicines, homeopathy, Bach flowers, dabbled in the essential oils with massage with my girls, but didn't really understand how they were produced or anything like that. And then there was another important event. My mother died in the west of Ireland. That was pretty traumatic. And then my father, 4 months later, I felt very connected to my roots and wanted to get back into the workforce. So I started my own artisan bakery making Irish breads, and that developed into 12 breads and my mother's beautiful Irish plum pudding. She was a home science teacher. And, we won 2 major food awards and we were in Cuisine magazine and all the rest of it. But during the 10 years, I became very ill, really, and ironically was diagnosed as being a celiac. So there I was eating all this handmade bread and products and my poor system So I stopped and went back teaching for a bit and sort of pondered the future. And I remember I kept having this mantra, I want to do something that nurtures people. I just kept saying it, and I had no idea, not that teaching isn't nurturing people, but I knew there was something else. So on a visit to the Abbaye Notre Dame de Saint-Onc in just outside Gourd, my God, I went down this winding road around the bend and saw this magnificent edifice, the old abbey, and the lavender fields around it, and sampled products that the monks had made. And I thought, my life has just changed. This is it. This is a new trajectory. And that was my aha moment to come back and study properly essential oils. So I did the diploma. And I think I'm a bit OCD, because when I'm interested in something, that's what I read, like ad nauseum. So I did a lot of self-directed study after that, and had the great privilege of studying with Rhiannon Lewis in Australia, and in her lovely home in France, advanced clinical aromatherapy, which really interested me. Then I came back, and Wellpark College asked me to go and teach the diploma, which I resisted for a year, but they were insistent. So I did eventually. I went back to teach for 2 years, and I rewrote the diploma, incorporating what I'd learned overseas. I really enjoyed that. It's when you teach something that you really, I think, get a handle on it,
Right.
But after that, I did want to work in my own business, because I absolutely love working with clients. I really do. It's my raison d'etre, to give the treatments. And so that's what I do now. I work in my own practice. I teach small groups, because teaching's in my genes. There's heaps of teachers in my extended family, and I like sharing knowledge, but there's small groups. And I love making products. I love gardening. I love nature. And I give treatments. So that's sort of where I'm at the moment. But I feel that actually everything that I've done in my life has helped me to be a better therapist. All the joys, the sorrows, the challenges. I mean, being an immigrant twice, it's not easy. I remember at the age of 6, absolutely hating moving to England. It was probably the most traumatic experience of my life. I do think that life experience really helps you to be, hopefully, more compassionate and understanding, and a little bit wiser.
Can you talk just a little bit about how the terrain of the human body affects your work?
Well, in my work, really, I work with, I call them, and myself included, the walking wounded. Like, we're living people coping with the stresses of everyday life. And I mean, the stresses are huge, like people struggling from day to day just to pay their bills, try and get a roof over their head. I mean, even if you're in a fairly stable environment, you just have to switch on the news and the cortisol levels rise because of the barbarity that's happening around the world in so many places, and what we're doing to our beautiful earth. So everybody has stress to a certain degree, and that's the area that I work in, mental, emotional stress. So, of course, the body's terrain would come into that, but I primarily work, as I say, with the emotions. I don't know if you've read Candace Pert's book, The Molecules of Emotion. I mean, she was amazing, and she proved that the molecules of emotion have, they have effects in the body. They have pharmacological effects in the body. And she basically says that the molecules of emotion run every system of the body. And I totally believe that from my own experience and from working with clients. So what I do is I have a very in-depth consultation, which is a conversation. I never give people forms to fill in. That's anathema to me, to say to somebody, sit over there and put your heart and soul onto that piece of paper, for me, like, they don't know me. They don't know that they would respect or feel safe with me. Yes, I've never done that. And I've always found over the years that in any healthcare situation, when I'm given a form to fill in, I feel a very profound disconnection between myself and the person to whom I'm about to entrust an aspect of my well-being, you know? So I feel very, very passionate about that. And when I was teaching the diploma, the students, they weren't allowed to give out client intake forms. They had to fill them in while building connection and trust, and also while monitoring body language, which is huge for telling us about a person, you know, especially the eyes, you know, are they sunken and with, you know, through stress and depression, or are they bright and lively? And just their face, does it radiate happiness or anxiety or nervousness or whatever, you know, the voice, the words, the gait, you know. So I find that when we delve into the mental and emotional issues, it does affect the terrain. I mean, it can't but affect the terrain, you know. To me, it's always been illogical to think the mind, heart, and body are separate. You know, you know, giving people drugs to fix a physiological problem is not the full picture for me. It never has been, you know. And yet, so many times I've been even to therapists, and they never say, "How are you feeling? How are you feeling in here?" And actually, that would have been why I was there, because what I was feeling in here wasn't good, you know? So, I'm super passionate about that. I give people a lot of time. I have no timepieces, no technological devices in my treatment room. And, you know, I spend a lot of time preparing for a client. You know, I prepare a lovely fresh herbal tea from the garden and I present it nicely. And I have a warm rug, you know, for their knees. And I make the setting as beautiful as I can. And people might think, yeah, well, they're little details. Actually, it's the little things that make a difference, because what I'm doing in those two simple things is giving them a message of kindness and care and compassion. And they really notice that, you know, they feel cared for when you've done these little extras for them. And I don't know if you know John O'Donoghue. He is a favorite author of mine. He wrote that wonderful book, Anam Cara. I discovered him 30 years ago, and I think he saved my life. I was quite lost spiritually. His writing is beautiful, and he talks about kindness as something deep in the human soul. Something deep in the human soul seems to depend on the presence of kindness. And once we sense it, we are able to trust and open ourselves. And I think that's so relevant. It also suggests that your vulnerability, though exposed, is not taken advantage of. Rather, it becomes an occasion for dignity and empathy. Well, I could cry when I read that, because I think it is fundamental to connecting with this unique human being who trusts us enough to come and reveal themselves, you know. And we know that loneliness is a major, major problem nowadays, particularly since COVID. And, you know, your Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, he wrote this wonderful book called, what is it? Together, The Healing Power of Human Connection in a Sometimes Lonely World. And he describes the epidemic of loneliness as a real public health concern, running like a dark thread through so many issues like violence, anxiety, depression, addiction. And he calls it the great masquerader, you know, and it can appear in various states of anguish and anger and sadness. And so I think the therapeutic relationship, and particularly the personalized consultation, it is so important, because decades of research have shown that that relationship is crucial in any healthcare situation to the success of the treatment. And often it is the one place where a person can feel safe and nurtured and free to unburden themselves. To me, it's central to the whole, particularly the whole aromatherapy massage treatment. The aromatherapy massage it's three-pronged. It's the talk therapy, the bespoke essential oils for the client, and the body work, the massage. And those three things could stand alone and be effective. You put them together and they are phenomenal. They're a singularly unique modality. And I've often thought it should be taught almost as its own modality. I've always said that aromatherapy massage is in a league of its own for those reasons. The power of intent is something that needs to be stressed.
Huge.
Yeah, and O'Donoghue, he talks about the inestimable power of intention. Before any client arrives, I prepare myself.
Yes.
So intent is another thing that I always stress to students. We have to put ourselves in a heart-centered, good space. Have you come across the Heart Math Institute?
I'm familiar. Yes.
Honestly, I'm in love with them. I just think they're fantastic. I mean, 30 years of research into the energy of the heart, and they have shown that this powerful electromagnetic field extends out about 5 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And that our thoughts and emotions emit energetic fields which affect our environments and the people in our environments. And when our heart rate is, when we experience positive emotions, our heart rate variability is very stable. When we experience negative or angry emotions, it's very jagged and erratic. And so it's clear to me that as therapists, we need to be in that heart-centered, loving space, and
Right.
they have some really simple techniques to to put yourself into that space. So I think intent is just another aspect of the whole treatment.
Absolutely. Brought up your students a couple of times, and I did look at your website, but I only clicked on one of your courses just to check it out and see what it was about. Tell us a little bit about what you teach. Is it this therapeutic encounter, or is it aromatherapy specifically?
I teach, like, the first one is, what is the title of module 1? It's an introductory course to the world of essential oils, but I also teach 2 practical aspects of aromatic touch for the hands and feet, to give them something practical and ways that they can use essential oils. So we actually cover quite a bit in that. And then I think the second one was very much based on the chemistry and the respiratory system, and they make some products. And the third one, I think, was musculoskeletal and a head massage. Yeah. But in the first one, yes, I do talk about the personalized consultation. I don't know if you've come across this book by Dr. Bernard Lowen, The Lost Art of Healing. He says that the essence of medicine is addressing a human being. This now is why I think the personalized consultation is so important. And he says a human being is more than a heart, a lung, an organ that is dysfunctional. A human being is a mind, a soul, and a presence. And that's the word that gets to me. It's that presence. What is it about this human being that is their unique presence? And we're not going to find that by getting them to sit in a corner on, filling in a piece of paper. And he talks about the lost art of listening as a quintessential failure in our healthcare, because the information gathering is not just about the disease, it's about finding out what's agitating a person's mind. And I think we all have stuff that agitates our mind. How is that affecting us, And he says that patients crave caring dispensed largely with words. And he was a phenomenal observer of body language. And if his patients weren't responding to the treatment, he would notice and he'd say to them, what's going on in your life? What are you not telling me? And very often there would be some emotional or mental issue that needed resolution, and then the body would start to heal.
Right.
Dr. Abraham Verghese, he's a professor at Stanford Medical School. And he's a great believer in the head to toe examination, sit beside the bed. He also teaches his medical students that just as important is the doctor-patient relationship. And he even uses the word sanctity. And he shares this lovely ritual that he has, whereby before he engages with a patient, he washes his hands. And he reminds himself that he is about to enter into a sacred space with this stranger who has come to tell his story. And I mean, that just blows my mind. I'm thinking, thank God you're teaching those future doctors, you
Right.
know?
And that's what you're doing for the clients that come to see you. You're
Yeah,
giving them the sacred space where they can let all of the things go
yes.
that are gumming up their mind, that are preventing them from healing, and offering that therapeutic encounter, that healing touch, along with the aromatherapy, and giving them space, holding that safe space for them to share and talk and let it out. You're doing it.
Well, yeah, that I mean, and that really is my passion. And you know, Donahue says that something in us cries out for belonging. We want to be acknowledged and heard and valued for the
Yes.
unique human being that we are in a
Yes.
non-judgmental way, you know. And
Yes.
he actually says we have unlearned the grace of presence and belonging. And I believe that. I think there's a lack of grace to a large degree in modern life, you know. And he says that presence, which is, you know, what Bernard Lowen refers to, finding that presence, is the way a person's individuality comes toward you. Presence is the soul texture of the person. And for me, this is the sacred essence of the therapeutic encounter. You know, this is the purpose of that deep consultation, to honor that essence, to get to know that person, you know. I can hear the wailing from the hinterland. It's all right for you, but we haven't got time, you know. But my answer to that is actually, if we're working in our own practice, we choose how we work. We can make time. We can do things differently.
If the person you're seeing for whatever therapeutic modality you're going for, if they don't have the time for you, find someone who does.
Exactly.
Find
And I
someone
know,
who does.
yes, yeah, it's very different working at the bedside, you know,
Yes.
in a hospital environment. You're limited in time and space. But I would say, put away your cell phone. You can still have a very meaningful, heartfelt conversation with someone, even if it's just for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, Sherry Turkle has done, this is a really interesting book. In her research, she found that students, they were terrified of face-to-face conversation or even talking on the phone. They felt that it was too vulnerable. They would rather text or email. Then they found out that in the past 20 years, there was a 40% decline in empathy seen in college students linked to the presence of digital communication. She's quite positive, though, at the same time. She said that the good news is we can be taught how to listen well and how to have a good conversation. You know, they are skills that can be taught. I think we just have to be aware, you know.
Correct.
And if somebody comes to see me, if I were typing away on the computer, I would not be looking at this person that's come to see me. I'm just such an advocate of face-to-face personal conversation and deep listening. I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh who said that deep listening can relieve the suffering of another human being. And it's true. By the time we've had a really nurturing, you know, conversation that just flows, you know, the client is already feeling better before they even get onto the massage table with the oils. I mean, that's wonderful. That's beautiful. That's why I say it's such an incredible modality in its own right, you know. Candace Pert talks about creating a loop of healing talking and then accessing the emotions through the body.
Having that somatic experience, that in the body experience. Yes.
Yes. I thought, well, that's what the aromatherapy massage treatment is. It's, connecting with the mind, accessing the emotions through the body. And then you add essential oils to that mix that we know work psychologically and physiologically.
Absolutely.
No wonder it's a powerful modality,
Huge.
No wonder it's in its own league,
Well, Annie, what are you working on right now that you're really excited about?
I am writing a book, which I haven't said very much about, but it's basically about what we've spoken about, There's quite a bit more in books take on a bit of a life of their own, don't they?
They absolutely do. There's a reason they call it birthing a book. We'll just
I
say that.
know. I feel like I'm in the last throes of labor, and I know all about that, having had 7 children. It's all Rhiannon Lewis's fault because she asked me to write it, because I know she believes in everything that I've said, and she likes the way I work.
She has a way of drawing things out of people.
She's amazing.
Not just things. She has a way of drawing greatness out of people.
She's so inclusive, and she's such an inspiration herself. There are no superlatives good enough for Rhiannon. And I'm not one to use superlatives easily. I think they're overused, but she is phenomenal for the clinical aromatherapy world. Her knowledge, for the art and the science, and her inclusion of everybody, and insisting that, conversations are very respectful. And the ICANN website, which I hope the listeners will join and go on to, is just phenomenal. The International Clinical Aromatherapy Network. I mean, any serious aromatherapist or student should belong to that. There is such a wealth of information, and it's a safe space, and you can trust the information there.
Right.
It's very well run. So yeah, she's just amazing.
When I was looking at your classes, it seems like they're in person, and what you do is absolutely in person. But how can people connect with you?
Well, they can connect with me on ICANN for a start, because there is a messaging section. But also, I do have a website, annieprincearomatherapy.co.nz. Email. I've actually just moved from Auckland, up an hour north of Auckland, to an area called Matakana. So I have set up a treatment room here.
How often do you offer your classes?
I'm terrible. I hate marketing. I have a presence on Instagram and LinkedIn, but I do nothing there. I don't really know what I'm doing, and I don't know that I want to know. I don't want to spend hours and hours.
That's the thing. As aromatherapists, like, we want to help people. We don't want to sit and write content or create reels or make funny videos or we just want to help people.
So, I mean, I'm terrible. I tend to wait until people ring me up and I say, okay, I'll put you on the list. And then when I've got, a few people, I'll run a class. So I don't have a schedule or anything like that. It's,
it's much more organic. When people need it, then you do it. That's I actually like that a lot.
Yeah, and because I do lots of different things, like I like to make product, I like to garden, I love to make herbal products, and I love the treatments, and I like time with my family and grandchildren.
So you mentioned you have 7 kids. How many grandkids do you have now?
I have 6 boys. So I said to them, what the hell are you trying to create an all-black team or something? We have no granddaughters. But they're an absolute delight. But anyway, so yeah, lots of exciting things happening at the moment,
That's great. That's great. Well, as we come to a close, you've shared so much and so many quotes, but I'm curious if there's any other inspiring words.
Oh, yeah, because my work and the book are really about human connection and how disconnected we have become, disconnected from ourselves, from others, and from nature, really, to a degree, I love Johann Hari's book called Lost Connections, and it's so insightful. And I love his quote right at the end, where he says, we have been tribalist and disconnected for so long now. It's time for us all to come home. I think there's so much stress and anxiety, depression in the world today that we really need, to build that connection again, that face-to-face connection. I think as therapists, we have a great ability to fulfill that role of connection, by engaging in this face-to-face conversation.
All right. Well, Annie, thank you so much for taking time out of your beautiful New Zealand morning to chat with me here on Aromatic Chat. I appreciate you tremendously and everything that you're doing there in New Zealand with the therapeutic encounter. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Melissa. It's been a real joy to meet you. And I'm sure down the track, we'll meet somewhere else again.
Absolutely. It's a small world. This aromatherapy world that we're involved in. It's a small community, even though it's huge. Like I said at the beginning, there's still so many people I haven't spoken with. So thank you so much. The teacher's heart is so evident in Annie Prince. I admit I was taking some notes as she was sharing all of the information that has been inspiring her work. I especially loved how she spoke about connection. I believe that connection is what we were designed for. As humans, our souls need connection with other people. In the 1940s, Renee Spitz followed 2 groups of children from birth. One group was raised in an orphanage where the babies had little to no human connection, and the other group was raised in a prison nursery where their incarcerated mothers were allowed to give their babies care and affection every day. By the time the babies were 1 year old, the orphanage babies were less curious, less playful, and more subject to infections. By the time they were 3 years old, only 2 of the orphanage babies could walk and manage a few words, while the children who had been raised in the prison nursery were confident and talking and walking. In the 1960s, Harry Harlow developed an experimental model that took Spitz's studies even further. In a series of what we would consider very cruel experiments, Harlow took monkeys just a few hours after birth and raised them in complete isolation from any other monkeys, including their mothers. At the end of the isolation period, they would huddle in the corners of their cages and rock back and forth. They did not interact with other monkeys or play. In the movie Old by M. Night Shyamalan, this experiment is unintentionally played out, showing that for babies and young children, connection is critical. Without it, they cannot survive. And I would say that as adults, we are no different. Without deep human connection, we physically, mentally, and spiritually suffer. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Annie Prince. If you are in New Zealand, I hope that you'll connect with her in person. And if you're not, we do still have this wonderful technological tool that allows you to connect with her online. I will include all of the links mentioned in today's episode in the show notes. Be on the lookout for Annie's book, coming soon. Aromatic Chat is produced by Lemon Balm Coaching. I'm your host, Melissa, Master Transformational Coach, Registered Aromatherapist, and Certified Emotion Code Practitioner. I invite you to connect with me on the web at lemonbalmcoaching.com and Instagram at lemonbalmcoaching. I will see you next time with our next episode. Until then, peace, love, and aromatics.